Hey there, Gary Parrish. Welcome back to the CBS Sports Eye on College Basketball podcast here on CBS Sports Network, where we sometimes discuss camel fighting, dodo birds, and leaky black. Matt Norlander is here with me, and we're going to be here for the next hour, helping you get ready for the 2025 Final Four that is now all set for San Antonio, Auburn, Florida, Duke, Houston. All four number one seeds have advanced to the Final Four for just the second time in history. Norlander, good to see you again. I know some folks are bothered by the lack of a true Cinderella in this Final Four, but I'm not. Some have called it the best Final Four ever, at least on paper. Let's start by asking you if you agree with that sentiment.
I agree with it. I mean, I said the sentiment on our Sunday night pod. I think I was the first one. Listen, I was the first one to report that the first Final Four with 4-1 seeds happened in 2008 in San Antonio. I was the first one to report that this would be the second time this would happen. And I was the first one to report that this is the best Final Four field we've ever had. And in addition to just being 4-1 seeds and being four of the top 10 KenPom teams ever, also consider the fact that the collective efficiency margin of those four teams, Auburn, Duke, Florida, Houston, they also add up to be comfortably the best in the history of advanced metrics. So yeah, we've got an incredible field. Doesn't mean we're guaranteed to get 1, 2, or 3 incredible games. I certainly hope that it leads to that. So this is indisputably the best, but going in, the collection of talent here is the best overall. And I'm super excited for it. Just to see the variety of storylines and ways that we could see any number of these teams winning 2 more games to win it all is really cool. And also, Parrish, this does feel appropriate just in that these have been the 4 best teams, and oftentimes you don't necessarily get a tournament that provides you a champion that is also the best team. But no matter what team wins, pick any of these 4, whatever team wins, they will have the rightful claim to have been the best team in the country this season by pure nature of the fact that they're going to have to go through 2 of the best teams in the country on the final weekend of the season in order to do so. So even if, like, just as a pure example, Florida was the last number 1 seed that got it, Auburn was the number 1 overall seed. Florida was 4th in that. If Florida beats the number 1 overall seed for a second time this season and then beats either the top seeded Duke team or the top ranked Duke team in metrics, or beats a Houston team that has the number 1 defense in the country, like Florida in that scenario will be able to claim that it was the best team in the country. It's not a situation in which you could have a potential champion who got hot, was really, really good, maybe not the best. This one will have a claim to be the best no matter what.
Yeah, whatever team wins this will be a worthy champion that is looked upon fondly. And I think it's also true that any of the 4 can reasonably win this. And I know that might sound silly to some, like, oh, really, any of the teams in the Final Four could win the Final Four, but it's not always true. And that's why I don't mind a lack of a Cinderella. Like, I can get excited about any storyline, put it in front of me, I'll figure out a way to be interested in it. But the truth is, when George Mason went to a Final Four, wonderful story. People will talk about it forever. Norlander has written thousands of words about it. I knew once I got to that Final Four, there was no way they were winning 2 more games. So we really, at that point, only have 3 teams that could reasonably win the Final Four. Same thing goes for VCU, Loyola Chicago. I don't want to say every so-called mid-major or Cinderella, because like Butler really did almost win 2 games and pull off the classic forever Cinderella story. But for the most part, when you have the Cinderellas make it to the Final Four, what is on tap is a lopsided game. What is on tap is a likely blowout. And even if it's not a likely blowout, it is wildly unlikely that you're watching a potential national champion. You know how this story ends. So I love this Final Four because we don't have any of that. I could talk through any combination of wins and losses with these 4 teams. This team wins game 1. This team wins game 2. Okay, now let's flip it. Okay, now let's flip it again. Now these 2 are playing Monday night. Now these 2 are playing Monday night. This team wins. That team wins. There is no combination on this Rubik's Cube of basketball outcomes that doesn't make sense to me. It should be awesome. Who knows if we'll get 3 great games, but we are certainly in a better position than we usually are at the Final Four to get 3 great games.
Yeah, and that'll be aided, you would think, by the fact that these are the only four teams in the country that rank top 10 in offensive and defensive efficiency. Now, if you want to put Duke on a separate tier, I think that's fair. It ranks comfortably as the best team in the field. It's also the only team that's top five, and even specifically top four in offensive and defensive efficiency. Blue Devils have the number one offense in the country, number four defense. The inverse of that is Houston has the number one defense, 10th in offense. The next best team is Auburn in terms of highest ranking across both of those. Auburn is third on offense, eighth on defense, and then Florida, number two offense in the country, and number 10 in adjusted defensive efficiency. These teams are on a tier unto themselves, collectively 135-16, which is not the best collective record and winning percentage of any group of four going into a Final Four, but is obviously pretty close there overall. GP, which team, curious, whether you want to just narrow this, I'll let you answer it how you want to answer it, specifically with the path in the tournament or over the past 6, 8, 10 weeks, which team's journey to get to the Final Four impresses you most? Is it Duke coming out of the weak ACC, but doing what it did in the tournament? It has the greatest margin of victory through 4 games. Is it Houston, winning the Big 12, sweeping it, only having one loss in the league by 1 point at home against Texas Tech, and then taking the toughest possible seed route on way to doing it in Indianapolis? Is it Florida, which really came on strong at the end of the season and into the SEC tournament, and then was able to win and escape hatch fashion against Texas Tech, and the way that it did it with Walter Clayton Jr.? Or is it Auburn, which has been able to reverse its trends, and after looking really dominant for the first 2.5, 3 months of the season, is stumbling down the stretch in the regular season in the SEC tournament, but then regaining its form and, clinching it pretty convincingly against Michigan State? To you, just which one impresses you the most of those four?
Well, I think you can argue Duke has been the most impressive team just from an efficiency perspective. Like the numbers are the numbers, right? What they are doing to people is what they are doing to people. But in terms of being impressed by a path, by what you've actually accomplished, like the teams you've pushed to the side, it's Houston. Now, they've won 17 straight games. They only lost in regulation once all season. It happened in November. Those 17 straight wins have come against 12 NCAA tournament teams or 11 NCAA tournament teams, but they beat Baylor twice. So 12 of the 17 wins are against NCAA tournament teams. Like what Kelvin Sampson has done with this first program, but specifically this team, is like all-time great stuff. So obviously Todd Golden getting Florida to a place where it could win a game on the road against the outright SEC champ and the number one overall seed in the NCAA tournament, and then turning that into an SEC tournament championship, and then turning that into a trip to the Final Four. Obviously, that's awesome stuff. The story at Duke is, 15 straight wins, just absolutely embarrassing good basketball teams. Like what they did to Alabama was super impressive. But in terms of the path, I think it's got to be Houston. What do you think?
I would agree with you. Apologies, by the way. Yeah. The old throat, it's coming up on me. A flu game here. We're going to make it happen over the next hour or so. I agree. I would say Houston, with how it has been able to do this over the course of specifically like the past 6-8 weeks, and then going to Indy, having to get past Gonzaga and being dominant. Yeah, that's my answer.
The other thing about this Final Four, then we'll move on, it's not just we have the 4 best teams. We've got the 2 National Player of the Year candidates and arguably the 3 best players. I submitted my ballots for CBS Sports All-America teams, National Player of the Year, National Coach of the Year earlier today. And the first 3 names I put on my first team All-America ballot were Cooper Flagg, Janai Broome, and Walter Clayton. And all 3 of those guys are going to be in San Antonio at the Final Four as well. So star-studded. On paper, you can't really expect to do any better than this. 4 number 1 seeds, the best players in the country. And yes, one of these coaches is going to become a first-time national championship. Doesn't get better than this. Can't wait to get to San Antonio. When we come back, some have argued that the transfer portal is the worst thing in the history of college sports, but I wouldn't try telling that to Auburn or Florida or Houston, because each of those teams' best players, leading scorers at least, were obtained through the transfer portal. Is it actually making basketball better? I'm going to ask Norlander that after this break, and if he can talk, we'll get his answer. It's the Eye on College Basketball podcast. We're on CBS Sports Network. Welcome back to the Eye on College Basketball podcast, CBS Sports Network. Lots of interesting aspects to this Final Four. One of them is that three of the teams have leading scorers who began their college careers somewhere else. Norlander, this isn't just a Final Four with four number one seeds. It's also a Final Four with three teams led by Division I transfers. Auburn's Johni Broome started at Morehead State. Florida's Walter Clayton started at Iona. Houston's L.J. Cryer started at Baylor. What, if anything, do you draw from these facts?
I think there's something to it. I think this will be the norm moving forward. We also have we've got the blend of it all. So you've also got Duke, Cooper Flagg. You've got a star freshman, a one-and-done NBA player. So you've kind of got a good reflection GP of where the college game is right now. And think about the Cryer started in the Big 12 at Baylor. So a transfer from a high major to high major. And you've got two lower level guys. And Clayton specifically, I mean, it is wild to think back. I did a story on Pitino when he was at Iona and thinking I was in practice with him. I sat in Pitino's Iona offices with Walter Clayton Jr. and just to think back on that just a couple of years ago and see where he is now, it's pretty awesome, pretty cool. But yeah, I do think that this is just going to be part of it. It's a function of having so many transfers in the sport. Not a bad thing, but as we speak right now, we're approaching 2,000 players in the portal, and every staff that's not coaching in the tournament is trying to find their next guy to do this very thing.
You say not a bad thing, and I agree with you, but I'm not sure college basketball fans, broadly speaking, agree with us. Because this is a time of the year where, yes, we're playing the NCAA tournament and the bracket is unfolding and we're headed to San Antonio for the Final Four. And yes, coaches are changing jobs and getting fired and getting hired. But among the other biggest topics in the sport right now is the transfer portal. And all over the country, players are leaving, in some cases, big schools to go to smaller schools, but in many cases, smaller schools to go to bigger schools. And the most obvious example of this in recent days is Donovan Dent, who is the Mountain West Conference Player of the Year, star at New Mexico, is transferring to UCLA. He grew up in Riverside, California, not too far away from the UCLA campus. So after being mostly a mid-major recruit coming out of high school, he spends multiple years at New Mexico, develops into the Mountain West Conference Player of the Year, and then is reportedly offered in excess of $2 million to possibly, to play basketball in the Big Ten next season. And some look at that and believe it's the worst thing in the world. I look at it and think it's amazing that a young man who really didn't have much more than mid-major options or Mountain West Conference level options out of high school worked hard, developed, and became something that a Big Ten program was interested in and is now going to, again, reportedly make millions of dollars playing college basketball next season. Like, in my mind, that is an awesome story. And just to connect it back to this Final Four, if Johni Broome never leaves Morehead State, and I know, I assume, I guess, that some people at Morehead State were not happy when he did that. But if Johni Broome never leaves Morehead State, he never gets this experience that we're all watching happen right now. If Walter Clayton never leaves Iona, and I bet you there were some Iona fans that were upset when he did, but if he never leaves there, he doesn't get this opportunity to maybe go out, win two more games, and be the most outstanding player in a Final Four. As I posted on Twitter, I guess it was late last night, early this morning, every successful person I know has left their first job out of high school for a bigger job that pays more. Like, that's a pretty normal trajectory. And I know it's not quite apples to apples because we're talking about college athletics, but where it is similar is I'm never going to be not happy for somebody who improves their place in life in whatever way they think they're doing that. When Donovan Dent came out of high school, the best place for him, given his options at that time, might have genuinely been New Mexico. But he now has new options, and they're lucrative options. And I don't get offended when he or any other player takes advantage of them. I'm happy for them. And I'm happy for Janai Broome leaving Morehead State, Walter Clayton leaving Iona, and L.J. Cryer once upon a time leaving Baylor. I'm happy that players are now freed up to do what coaches have been doing forever, which is doing the best job they can do at the job that they have. But when better opportunities present themselves, more lucrative opportunities present themselves, taking advantage of it. That is the story of college athletics for as long as I've been alive. Now it is also, in many ways, the story of college basketball players and college football players. And people can be mad about it if they want to, but I'm not going to be hypocritical. I'll be consistent on this. I'm happy when people advance themselves in this world, and that's all Donovan Dent did this past weekend, and it is all Janai Broome and at least Walter Clayton as well did at one point in their college basketball careers.
Yeah, I think this is just going to be how it will be. You saw it 2 years ago, and I'm not going to give you every team, but like Norchad Omier was a dominant low major player. He was on the Miami team that made the Final Four. You had Grant Nelson and Mark Sears on the Bama team. Yes, this season they fell one game short, but a season ago they were in the Final Four. Sears at Ohio, Nelson at North Dakota. UConn, Tristan Newton, East Carolina, look what he did. Cam Spencer, look what he did on the title-winning teams. Even Duke this season has Sion James, a transfer from Tulane. They also brought in Mason Gillis from Purdue, Malik Brown from Syracuse. If you're going to make a Final Four, you're probably going to have to figure out a way to pluck a player from another program in the portal that is a very intentional, specific, additive fit, at least one, if not two, given the way that the sport is built and how rosters are managed. And obviously, if you can have an NBA level, let alone a Cooper Flag, forget about that, just a lottery level, first round level talent, that will go a long way as well. I think the combination of roster builds we have in this Final Four GP are really reflective of where we are in the sport. And it would surprise me if we get to the 2026, 2027, 2028 Final Four and every roster, or nearly every roster didn't have the same exact thing. I just think this is where we are. And it's, there's a reason why the portal is like it is right now. And the Final Four reflects it.
A bunch of great stories at the Final Four connected to players. We just detailed some of them. Also great stories connected to the coaches. All four of them have interesting life stories. I want to focus on Jon Scheyer's next. He has Duke, his alma mater, in the Final Four at the age of 37. Norlander had a nice story on him that published this weekend that detailed how he could have instead, right now, been the coach at DePaul or even UNLV. I'm going to get Norlander to share that story with us next. You're watching the Eye on College podcast. We're on the CBS Sports Network. Welcome back to the Eye on College Basketball Podcast, CBS Sports Network. Jon Scheyer has Duke in the Final Four at the age of 37. It's just his third season as a head coach at his alma mater. He is 2 wins away from his first national championship, and the Blue Devils are the favorite in the betting markets to win this 2025 NCAA tournament. Norlander, you spent some time with him this weekend and wrote about how close he was to maybe not even being the Duke coach right now, because before he was the Duke coach, he wanted to be the DePaul coach, wanted to be the UNLV coach, couldn't land either of those jobs. Expand on that.
Yeah. It's crazy to think about now. So Scheyer, so basically over the course of nearly 2 weeks, 4 years ago, UNLV became open and an option first. So the UNLV process took longer than the DePaul process. He talked with UNLV first and was uncertain at the start whether or not he was going to get that job. Now, keep in mind, this is he's like 7 years into being an assistant at Duke at this point. He's won a national championship, albeit back in 2015. And at this moment, like Mike Krzyzewski privately maybe has not crossed the goal line of deciding I am for sure going to retire and for sure I only will have one more season. So he hasn't even told Jon Scheyer about what he's thinking internally at this point. So for all Jon Scheyer knows, Coach K could be coaching another 1, 2, 3, 4 years. Who knows how long? And he has no idea that he might even be the next Duke coach. That's not even on the table. So he goes through the UNLV process. Then DePaul comes along, and DePaul gets much more aggressive, much more quickly. And so in the middle of UNLV, here comes DePaul, and then Scheyer gets into a mode where like, okay, maybe UNLV won't happen, but DePaul certainly seems like it's going to happen. He's from Chicago, interviews there. He gets really confident that he's going to get this job privately, just like, and I think even on some level, like it is DePaul, like would he have absolutely 100% have taken it if offered, given where he was on the Duke staff? He told me not definitely, but he was thinking, literally the quote in my story was like, I was thinking I was going to be the next coach at DePaul. DePaul says no. They hired Tony Stubblefield, but the UNLV process is still ongoing at this point. So then for, 1, 2, 3 days, him and his wife at that point think, okay, DePaul didn't work out, but UNLV seems like it's going to, and they like mentally got themselves into a place where they like, okay, we could do this. Like we could see ourselves in Las Vegas. And then he doesn't get the UNLV job either. They give it to Kevin Kruger. So he goes from this headspace of like, this really might happen. Like I might finally, he was young. He still is young. The dude's 37. This is when he was 33. But he gets in this spot of like, maybe I will be a head coach to not getting it. And then less than 2 months later, Mike Krzyzewski pulls all of his assistants into his office and basically says, I'm going to retire. This decision is final. I will coach one more year. There'll be a process in terms of getting the next head coach, and then that process played out, and lo and behold, Scheyer wins the job. And it is wild to think that had he gotten either of those other two jobs, I think it's entirely possible that if he had been at DePaul or been at UNLV, because some people have said, well, Duke would have just hired him back. I actually don't think that's the case, because chances are DePaul or UNLV, one, if they weren't good in year one, he wouldn't have been the candidate. If they were decent or better in year one, he probably would not have just bailed right away and been the automatic pick for Duke. It's conceivable maybe, but I actually don't think that would have been the case. I think the way for Jon Scheyer to be the next head coach at Duke was to be told no by UNLV and DePaul. He gets the job here. And the bigger point of the story that I wrote on late Saturday night, effectively Sunday morning, really, was he has made Duke into his own image in many ways. He has exceeded expectations. Now, this team's expectation is to win a national championship. I get all that. But when you look at what he's done over the course of 3 years, 89 wins, making a Final Four, he's got one of the best rated Duke teams ever. It's pretty remarkable. And it reflects well on his personality and how he deals with his players, how he deals with the media, how he deals with people. He's extremely competitive, but he's also an easy guy to talk to, very easy to talk to. And, many people in his position, Parrish, I don't think would have had success, and they wouldn't have nearly the amount of success. It's all too many folks are rolling their eyes like it's Duke. I'm just telling you, that is not an easy job to take. I quote people in the story that reflect the same. It is not easy to take over a job with that much pressure. You can argue that what Scheyer has done right now, if he gets 2 more wins, you could really make the slam dunk case that this has been the best succession plan of any program, I think, in American sports, if he gets the title. But even short of that, it's been awesome. So that's kind of a big picture view on it. And to see him make this Final Four, he was recruiting that team. He was very intentional. The story also gets into Sion James was not being recruited in the portal by 5 other blue blood programs. He knew Malik Brown, Sion James, Mason Gillis. They were 3 players with 3 different skill sets. He had this huge freshman class coming in. He knew the exact roles that he wanted to fill on this team, and it has worked out gloriously. And if anything, he doesn't get quite enough credit just yet. Maybe the Final Four will give him this, GP, for how intentional and how smart he is when it comes to roster building and how making all those pieces fit works so well.
To me, that's the most impressive thing. I have noticed over the years that college basketball tends to be several years behind the NBA in almost everything, the on-the-court product, the off-the-court stuff. So in the NBA, there becomes a heavy emphasis on three-point shooting, and college basketball lags behind that. Now you're starting to see it more and more, but the numbers always are a few years behind. Similarly, for years, decades, college basketball coaches would just go out and recruit. Like, let's go get as many 5 stars as we can or as many athletes as we can, and let's just get a big recruiting class. And once we get everybody on campus, then we'll try to figure out how it works. But like right now, this is an oversimplification, sure, but it was a lot of just like talent collecting and then figure it out. In the NBA, that is not how they do it anymore, in part because you can't. With second aprons and taxes and salary caps. You have to be really smart and intentional with how you roster build. And that is the most impressive thing I think Jon's done with this team. He was very intentional with how he put together this roster. Yes, it starts with getting the 3 lottery picks. I understand. But what do you put with the lottery picks? That's where you get into the transfer portal. And you just don't take the best transfers available. You take the best transfers available that you can get that fit perfectly with the stars you've already got. He did that arguably as well as anybody else in the country. And if Duke wins a national championship, that's going to be among the biggest reasons why. The way he very intentionally built a roster that fit well together. Yes, it's also the most talented roster in the country because of Cooper Flagg, Kamal Malawaj, Kon Knueppel, but it's a well put together roster, and that's the biggest key, or at least among the biggest keys to Duke's success. As for the what if game, I do think the most likely scenario, if he ends up with the DePaul job or the UNLV job, is that he struggles in year 1, and then it's just harder for Duke to bring him back because people get fixated on the record. How can you hire somebody who just lost this many games at DePaul or UNLV? As an assistant coach, you're just a blank slate. You're just somebody's imagination. But once you have wins and losses attached to your name, certain people get caught up on that. I would advise Duke in that moment, if you still think he's the guy, don't get caught up on what just happened at DePaul or UNLV. If you still think he's the guy, go hire him. But I'm just telling you, it would have been a harder everything to do it had he lost games somewhere else. I don't think he would have been hesitant about coming back after 1 year if that would have been offered to him. Like if you're the head coach at UNLV for a year and Duke wants you to come back home, you go back home. You're the head coach at DePaul for a year, Duke wants you to come back home, you go back home. That's Lane Kiffin at Tennessee going back to USC after 1 year in Knoxville. You just got to do it because you don't even know how to say no. But I do think he benefited from not getting the DePaul job and not getting the UNLV job. And there's a lesson in there for all of us. We're not all basketball coaches, but we are people who, pursue things within our careers and professions. And I know that sometimes when you're chasing something, when you want something and you don't get it, you see it go to somebody else. Sometimes perhaps somebody you don't think is as deserving, it can beat you down a little bit. You start to question yourself. Sometimes, it can work out even better for you. The disappointment leads to even better things. Not always. I don't want to fill you with false promises, but I can tell you a million stories of people I know, and Jon Scheyer would be one of them, of this job opportunity didn't go their way. This job opportunity didn't go their way. They were starting to ask some questions, maybe starting to doubt themselves, maybe starting to, I don't know, just feel a certain kind of way. And then boom, you look up and the things that you hated when they didn't happen for you actually turn out to be something that doubles as a blessing in disguise. And now he's 37 years old, 2 wins away from bringing another national championship to his alma mater. And again, in the betting markets, at least, Duke is the favorite to do that.
I have one quick question before we go to break for you. In your opinion, has Jon Scheyer exceeded expectations through 3 seasons? And I'll just quick context, then you let me know. Year 1, got a 5 seed, 27-9, knocked out in the second round by a quality Tennessee team, but didn't lose a home game that season. And Duke that season finished 3rd in the ACC. Year 2, North Carolina wins the ACC. Duke gets beat in the ACC tournament by NC State, then gets knocked out of the NCAA tournament as a 4 seed in the Elite 8 by NC State, knocked on the door of the Final Four. They lost by double digits. And then year 3, Duke is 35-3, 1 seed, rates best in predictive metrics, most of them anyway. And we see where it is now, has been able to bring in all this talent here. Has he met expectations or has he exceeded them?
I think it was debatable coming into this season because they squandered a great opportunity to get to a Final Four. I mean, it was right there for the taking against a team inferior to you, and you couldn't get it done. So coming into year 3, I think you could argue it, a variety of ways. As we sit here on March 31st, 2025, what are we talking about? You saw the graphic. He is 1 more win away from winning more games in his first 3 years than anybody in the history of Division I men's basketball coaching. Like, if you can't honestly say that's meeting expectations, then what are your expectations? For him to be something other, for him to be something greater than the winningest coach in the history of college basketball through 3 seasons? It will be helpful if he wins this national championship, because if he loses another game, this is just a fact. If he loses another game, it'll flip around pretty quickly, and people will say, well, 2 straight years he lost as a favorite in the NCAA tournament. Like, that will be a thing. Yeah. But I know. I'm with you on the, I'll roll my eyes as well. The guy's won 89 games through 3 years. He built the team that is now the favorite to win a national championship. And I know that it is easier to do this stuff at Duke than it is, let's just say, UNLV or DePaul. But if you think anybody can just take the reins of an incredible program and keep it operating at an incredible level, go talk to Villanova fans. Go talk to North Carolina fans. Go talk to Indiana fans. Just about every college basketball program, even the very best, can be taken to a bad place quickly with the wrong hire. As it is, Duke had to replace a legend, and they've done it with a guy who, at the age of 37, has them 2 wins away from a national championship. This succession plan is going brilliantly. When we come back, it became official this weekend. Kevin Willard, he did. He left Maryland for Villanova in the most awkward way possible. We'll dive into that story next on the Eye on College Basketball podcast, CBS Sports Network. Welcome back to Eye on College Basketball podcast, CBS Sports Network. Kevin Willard, he made it official this weekend. He left Maryland after a trip to the Sweet 16. He's now the head coach at Villanova. It all happened in a pretty awkward and public way. Norlander, what did you make of how all of this went down?
Oh, boy, what a question. So it wasn't handled well. At least publicly, from what I was told, Willard did consistently keep the Maryland president apprised throughout. Now, there's been a variety of stuff that has been reported on, and John Talty, who did a big dive on this story for us at CBSSports.com over the weekend, even has more. He got boosters on the record, speaking about how it's better that he's gone now. One of the quotes was, "It was just chaos." Another quote was, "He banged us like a drum," and all of this. We went from a situation where, personally, initially, I thought Willard was doing this. And I actually, you know what? Let me set the table like this, GP. I truly do think that when this got going and it got public about his candidacy for Villanova, which when that first happened, I know like a million things happened in our world, let alone in college basketball, but just a reminder that when Willard's name was first attached to this job, Porter Moser at Oklahoma was attached to it. Richard Pitino, now at Xavier, but was very much attached to it. And Villanova was consistently in contact with. And there was actually another candidate that's never been released publicly, so I won't disclose that name, that I'm pretty sure Villanova was looking at in addition to Willard. So that was where we were initially. And then Willard's name got attached to it, and then he spoke out on it at the press conference, the first of, I guess, 3 times he did this. I did think that he was using leverage to publicly say, hey, listen, because he didn't have an AD. Like, he wanted to say, we need to commit more as a university to our basketball program. And the Night in New York thing, became its own thing and all of that. But I think it went from potentially him trying to do that to it being a situation where he could not return to College Park. Like, the fan base detests him now. They hate the way that he handled it. And the idea that, that he could have used this to, and, I was told he had a contract in the neighborhood of maybe even slightly north of $6 million waiting for him at Maryland to come back in contract renegotiations. But it became truly untenable. And now he gets to go to a place where Villanova, where basketball means a hell of a lot at Maryland, but there's a football program. They're in the Big Ten. There's all this stuff there. At Villanova, basketball is the show. And he returns to the Big East, and he gets to go back there. Whether or not he can be successful, that's another discussion for potentially another time. We will do a college coaching carousel wrap-up pod in April, as we do every year, to get kind of deeper into this stuff. But you asked me what I made of it. It was interesting. I mean, the way that interesting to say the least. I mean, he definitely ticked off a lot of people, not just even fans, but like money people at Maryland. I was told that, he went dark in spots with people that are like highly influential and connected at Maryland, which is not a great look. And so here we are with Maryland having to find a coach, and I'll toss it right back to you, but just real quick, like Maryland is now in a position where it does not have a coach. It doesn't have an AD. The portal has been open for a week, and it's got to figure out what it's going to do. What candidates want the job, what candidates can it get. Buyouts are a truly significant factor in a lot of this. So will it be Buzz Williams? Will it be Mike Rhodes? Will it be a Tony Skinn, a Dwayne Simpkins, a Chris Mack? Will it be one of those 5 names? Will it be someone? Steve Blake put his name on the board for the job, GP. I actually kind of love it. I have no idea if Steve Blake can run a program or not, but I do actually really love the idea of if he truly wants it, if he's got the ability to do it, a former player coming in and trying to save the day, that actually has some real compelling stuff to me. Don't know if it would work whatsoever. Don't know if Maryland and its search firm are going to seriously consider him. But yeah, this has been one heck of a saga that played alongside the NCAA tournament. What about your thoughts?
The mistake Kevin made is thinking that if I talk about this honestly and in a nuanced way, they'll understand. And the problem is that just is not a effective strategy. My advice to coaches on this is pretty simple. Don't talk about it ever. Your future at your school, your possible future at another school, somebody is reporting you're a candidate for a job, just respectfully decline to comment 100% of the time, because nothing you say is going to make it better. Like, practically speaking, take basketball and emotion and fandom and all of that out of this, which I'm capable of doing, and I do it all the time. It's why I don't have issues with the transfer portal. I don't think about this from a perspective of, is it great for the sport? I'm happy to have that conversation, but to me, the most important thing is, do people get what they're worth? Do people get what's fair? I see a young man transfer from one place to another place, get millions of dollars. I want to celebrate that. I don't want to be offended by it. So I'm capable of taking all this stuff that most sports fans seem to have trouble taking out of it. And when you do that and look at it this way, this is what you get. Kevin Willard had a very good job, but he clearly didn't love it. Not every aspect of it. Didn't know who his next boss was going to be, and didn't like the financial commitment connected to his program from his school, didn't know if it was going to get better or worse going forward, and sort of made up his mind, I think, earlier than he indicated he made up his mind, that he was very interested in taking this opportunity at Villanova if it was presented to him. And I think the mistake he made is, like, if I just sort of put this all out there, people will understand. Like, if I just say, hey, guys, I'm trying to run one of the best basketball programs in America, and they won't let me stay an extra night in New York. And like this other school, you know who we're talking about, they'll let me stay every night in New York. So, like, you guys, I mean, what would you do? You would consider it, wouldn't you? And that's all I'm doing. Like, that's a totally logical, understandable perspective. But once you're a basketball coach at a place where people care about basketball and you start saying that stuff out loud, it ain't going to work for you. And that's the biggest lesson from all of this. Like, even if you are justified in your reasoning for possibly wanting to leave your current job for another one, you cannot say that into a microphone while your season is still unfolding. You cannot say it into a microphone on your way to the Sweet 16. Because it will blow up on you. And that is what happened. It's obviously more complicated than that. But in its simplest form, he tried to talk about something in a nuanced way that coaches have never figured out how to effectively talk about without it blowing up on them. And he's the latest one to have to learn that lesson the hard way.
Yeah. So 2 things real quick here. If he doesn't talk about it, it doesn't stop it from being just as big of a story, though. So, not to say that that's not the route that he shouldn't take, but if he declines comment, he's going to get asked about it. His name's going to be attached to it. There will be reporters that do their job and report on what's happening behind the scenes. He can choose not to talk about it, but even his no comment, in my opinion, becomes nearly as big of a story. If you're going to have genuine interest in and look into another job, that's going to get out there most of the time. What are you going to do? The other thing, separate to this, Maryland fans, I do feel bad for you. Because you had a team with a crab 5, with a buzzer beater in the tournament, with this freshman player that you might not see the like of on your campus again for 10, 15, 20 years. And now this denouement is such a downer that this season gets attached to Willard's exodus to Villanova, and there is a taint to it that is not fair to the players. The fan base had been to one Sweet 16 in the prior 17, 18, 19 years before this, and that is an unfortunate fallout of what happened here. I wanted to at least acknowledge that, because I think for Maryland fans, they were all the more furious. It's not like they get to the Sweet 16 every 2, 3, 4 years. They rarely get to experience this. They finally get there, and then what the players did, for the most part, Queen got his love. It was completely overshadowed by what Willard did.
One more segment to go. We're going to wrap this up next. You're watching the Ion College Basketball Podcast. We're on CBS Sports Network.
Welcome back in for one more quickie segment. GP, are you ready for a trivia time?
Okay, let's go.
Okay, trivia time. Which Final Four team this season has faced all other Final Four teams this season?
That's going to be your Auburn Tigers.
The Auburn Tigers have faced every Final Four team. Trivia time part 2. When's the last time a Final Four featured a team that had faced all the other Final Four teams?
Oh, that was so obviously 2012.
You know what? You're pretty close. 2014, Florida that season made the Final Four and played UConn, Wisconsin, and Kentucky that very same season. Here's my question for you. Auburn beat Houston. Remember how they beat Houston with the plane incident? I sure hope we get some plane incident stuff, by the way, this week. Can we get some recollection? Can we get an oral history?
I don't know if you've been following the news, but we have enough plane incidents going on in this world lately. I think we should probably try to decrease the number of plane incidents going on. And every time I turn on the television, there's something burning.
I know. Well, regardless, Auburn beat Houston, lost at Cameron, lost to Florida. Will Auburn, here's my question for you before we get out of here. Will Auburn have benefited or will benefit from the fact that it has a familiarity with these teams on the level that the other three don't at the same, Duke has played Auburn, but there's no guarantee that they'll face off in the title game.
Yes, I think you do gain something from that. Other coaches have told me you gain something from that. Mark Few specifically. Go back to that national championship game against Baylor. Remember, Baylor and Gonzaga were supposed to play earlier in that season, and Mark genuinely believes that if they'd have played that game, they would have had a better sense in the national championship game for the physicality and athleticism that Baylor was going to bring to the court. Mark Few genuinely believed that if Gonzaga got to play Baylor early, it would have helped them play Baylor late. So, yes, I think you have to draw some positives from it and believe that it's an advantage. Do you think so?
I do think so. Okay, so then one more quick thing. We're going to pick the games on tomorrow's show. Florida having looked as good as it did against Auburn here, which side, just from a prep standpoint, do you give the edge to there, Florida or Auburn?
I think Florida probably, because you feel like, hey, we've handled these guys pretty easily before. We did it in their building. We can do it again if we can do that again. I think Florida has an advantage, but that doesn't mean I can't see Auburn winning the game. As always, we'll see. Shouts to Devin Downey, Chester, South Carolina. Terry Teagle, he's a legend. Huck and Larnell. Thank you guys once again for watching the Ion College Basketball Podcast. We're going to be back tomorrow, same time, 1 o'clock Eastern, right here on CBS Sports Network. We'll talk to you then.